Caring for a parent while raising your own kids feels like being torn between two worlds. These are the words of Dr. Shruti Roy, co-founder of Hero Generation. If you're in the middle of it all, raising a family, supporting aging parents, Hero Generation is here for you. They understand. They help caregivers find balance, support, and the resource they need to manage life without burning out. Get the help you deserve at herogen.co. And while we are caring for someone that we love and it feels like a full-time job, you deserve a moment to breathe. Backed by 2 years of research with the University of British Columbia and Vancouver General Hospital, Zinnia offers evidence-based videos that not only reduce stress, but give caregivers meaningful moments of respite. So whether it's time to care for yourself or getting things done around the house, Zinnia helps you reclaim a little bit of that time just for you. Try it today at zinniatv.com and use the code GATHER20 for 20% off your annual subscription. U.S. News and World Report, a global authority in healthcare rankings and trusted consumer advice has just released its 2025 Best Senior Living Ratings. Recognizing 1,894 senior living communities across the country based on nearly 450,000 survey responses from residents and families. Now in its 4th year, this rating program helps families navigate one of life's biggest decisions, highlighting independent living, assisted living, memory care, and continuing care retirement communities that meet high marks in safety, caregiving, engagement, dining, and overall satisfaction. Today, I sit down with Liz Pierce, Product Director for Senior Living at U.S. News and World Report. In our conversation, Liz pulls back the curtain on how U.S. News evaluates senior living, what makes their approach unique, what themes are emerging among the top-rated communities, and we explore how families can use these ratings to feel more empowered and less alone in their decisions. You don't want to miss this conversation. Here is my interview with Liz Pierce. I'm excited to welcome Liz Pierce with us. We are excited to dive into senior living and the U.S. News and World Report, what that means. We're going to talk all about it. So Liz, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at U.S. News?
Yeah, absolutely. I am the director of senior living at US News, and that includes both our best senior living and our best nursing home sections. So I know you interviewed Zach a while back. I work really closely with him and his team. They're responsible for all of the data analysis that goes into US News's ratings and rankings. My role is really to make sure that that information is getting up on the site in a way that's as accessible and easy to use and helpful as possible for families who are searching for information.
Absolutely. So helpful. I am really looking forward to learning about a little bit more of the background of US News, the senior living, the ratings, how long you've been evaluating senior living communities.
Yeah, US News's history in the senior care space, not just senior living, goes all the way back to 2009, when we started publishing nursing home ratings on our site. And back then, really, where we got started was just realizing that the data on the CMS Care Compare site, as US News, we had an opportunity to bring that to families in a way that was more discoverable and a little bit easier to use than what was available online elsewhere at the time. And, from there in 2018 and 2019, we developed our own methodology to rate nursing homes, both for short-term care and long-term care. I know you talked to Zach about that. In senior living, it's a very different landscape. That CMS data, that Care Compare website, none of that is available. There's no, as you know, no national database, no national quality reporting on senior living communities. And so we've taken a different approach there. We launched a senior living directory in 2013, just to help families find the communities that might be in their area, get a little bit more information about, what services and amenities that they offer. But it wasn't until 2022 that we launched the Best Senior Living ratings. And in the senior living space, our ratings are really focused on resident and family satisfaction. They're based on the results of a national survey of residents and their families at more than 3,800 communities in 2025. And in the Best Senior Living ratings, we're able to really shine a light on the lived experiences of residents and their family members who are living in these communities and use those to create a methodology to help identify the communities that really stand out.
Completely. And it's so helpful. Having spoke with many families, we don't know where to start. And so having guidance, a directory where we can start that process is so incredibly valuable. Can you share with us what goes into gathering that resident and family feedback, and how do you ensure that there is fair representation? If you can speak to that.
Yeah, the survey, it's administered at communities across the country. Every community, every participant gets the same set of questions. So we're able to evaluate on a really kind of apples to apples basis nationwide. The survey asks about the kind of aspects of community life that are really important to residents and their family members. It asks about safety, about caregiving, about activity programming, satisfaction with the management and staff, food and dining, transportation, really all of those elements that are key to quality of life and well-being. We get that survey data back from survey providers who administer the surveys in the community, and Zach and his team get busy crunching the numbers. They do a lot of work to make sure that the survey results for each community that we evaluate are representative of life in that community. So US News only rates communities if we have enough data about that community. A high survey participation rate is important. And Zach's team also has some pieces of the methodology that really seek to identify potential causes of bias and adjust for those. So one thing that I've been really impressed to see those guys develop is a methodology to take a look at the proportion of residents versus family members that are responding in each community and adjust so that communities that have different proportions of those types of respondents are still evaluated evenly and fairly.
So important. Our frontline staff, so caregivers, activity directors, dining, are they factored into any of those ratings, or do they have a role in any of the contributions?
Yeah, what I would say to that is, the survey looks at each of those domains. It looks at satisfaction with the services, but also with the staff. And the best senior living communities are ones that receive a high overall score. We weight those categories and average them together. But what we see is that people's satisfaction with the frontline staff, those folks who they're interacting with every day in and day out, that satisfaction is really highly correlated with their overall satisfaction with the community. As part of the survey, I think in 2024, we're looking at almost 450,000 survey responses across the country. We get full text comments back from the survey as well. And again, we see people who are leaving the most positive reviews. They're naming their caregivers, they're naming the receptionist, they're naming the maintenance person who comes into their community every day and saying, these are the people who are really responsible for the experience that I'm having in this community.
Yeah, it speaks to that personal relationship, right? It really informs our view on that. You have this evolution of the senior living program. This is year 4 evaluating communities. How has the annual study evolved?
Yeah, what we've been able to do this year for the first time that we're very excited about in 2025 is that in addition to just that recognition that we award for the high overall score, best assisted living, best memory care, best independent living, we've introduced some new service level accolades to help families really understand some of the detail behind the methodology and some of the areas where different communities really stand out. So in the areas of caregiving, management and staff, food and dining, activities and enrichment, and the area of whether the community really feels like home. We've developed these new accolades in 2025, and they recognize communities that, of all of the communities nationwide that were evaluated, scored in the top 25% in those domains. To get those accolades, communities had to get a high score for the care level and a high score in that domain, and additionally, again, scored in the top 25% to really help families who are researching on the US News site understand, some of the analysis and some of the detail behind the ratings and to help them really qualify their search.
For families, what do you feel are feedback that people might have misconceptions about what the ratings mean or don't mean. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I think, one thing that families may not know when they are looking online in general for information, not just US news, but we see and we know that as people are deciding about what places they should seriously consider for themselves and their loved ones, they're doing a lot of research online. They're reading a lot of reviews. And one thing I can say about the US news ratings is that, all of the ratings people see on the site, all of the reviews that people see on the site are from real residents and their family members, which isn't necessarily always the case with information that is available elsewhere. And the other thing I would say is that because our ratings are based on that national survey and they require that high level of participation, I think they really give a different view of the overall experience of residents and their family members at that community. Sometimes when we see or leave reviews online, you might have had an experience, be it good or bad, and feel, motivated to get that out and online. But I think, the baseline that you get by asking people, looking back at the last year, how did you overall feel about your experience? It really brings another level of reliability and depth to the perspective we're able to provide.
Thank you. For those that are unfamiliar, what types of senior living communities do you evaluate?
Yep, US News in the Best Senior Living section, we look at assisted living, independent living, memory care, and we have a Best CCRC rating. As I'm sure you know, Nicole, for folks who are starting out in their senior living journey, understanding the difference between those levels of care and which one could be right for themselves or their family members can be confusing and a really difficult decision. Our ratings in independent living, they recognize those independent communities that are geared towards more independent seniors who are mostly able to live on their own, but maybe need some additional support with things like housekeeping, meal prep, transportation, shopping. The best assisted living ratings recognize assisted living communities, and those are the communities that provide a higher level of care and hands-on assistance with things like bathing, getting dressed, moving around, eating, medication management, that type of thing. The best memory care ratings recognize memory care communities, which can provide even more support for folks who are suffering from cognitive impairment, memory loss, be that from Alzheimer's or dementia. Those communities will often have specific features about the community themselves to help prevent wandering and keep residents engaged. They often have highly trained staff and offer specialized programming to really engage and support people who have that type of need. And then finally, the best CCRC ratings, continuing care retirement communities. Nicole, as you know, those are communities that are designed to offer seniors the chance to stay in place and move in potentially when they're in that assisted living stage and have access to different levels of care as they age without necessarily needing to move or change communities. To be awarded a best CCRC recognition from US News, communities need to be recognized as best in assisted living, memory care, or independent living. And they also need to have a skilled nursing facility on site and be recognized as a best nursing home in our nursing home ratings that publish in November.
So that is almost like an extra. If you are a best CCRC, you've hit the mark in more than one way.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. How are these new accolades different from being recognized as a best senior living community?
Absolutely. The best senior living recognition, that looks at an overall score. So again, that survey is asking people about their satisfaction with care, management and staff, food and dining, activities, enrichment. The UF News methodology weights each of those areas that we ask about in the survey and computes an overall score for the community to receive the best assisted living, best memory care, best independent living, that care level award. The community needs to have a very high overall weighted average across all of the domains. Those new service level accolades, they really drill down into performance in one specific area of the survey, and they recognize excellence in that area. So people need to be in the top 25% of all. Communities need to be in the top 25% of all of the participating communities nationwide to be recognized in those service level accolades.
Okay. And for those listening that really want to deep dive more into the data. Zach went and when we visited, he got us in the data analytics a little bit more too. So, from his lens, being a data analyst, for the communities that are best rated, what are some of those themes that you notice?
Yeah, that's a great question. This year, a lot of different communities of a lot of different types participated in the ratings. We just talked about the different care levels we rate. So we evaluated in 2025 communities in almost all 50 states, large communities and small communities, communities that offer all of the levels of care on site, and communities that specialize in just one. We looked at communities that are, standalone communities, and we looked at communities that are part of a larger portfolio. But the thing that they all have in common is that high overall resident and family satisfaction. The communities that are recognized as best have overwhelmingly high resident and family satisfaction with the care residents are receiving, with the management and staff and their interactions with them, with the activities and enrichment that are available. And I think, all those things add up to a really strong feeling in those best senior living communities that this feels like home. Surrounded by people who care about me. I feel safe. I feel comfortable. I feel well cared for.
For communities that didn't make the list, do you have any practical steps or recommendations they can take to improve, especially ways that really benefit the residents?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that we do get sometimes. And the first thing I always say is that not being recognized as a best senior living community, best in any of those categories, it's not necessarily an indication that the community is bad or doing anything wrong. It's a high bar to be recognized, and so we just want to make that clear that it's really the best recognizes the top performers in all of these categories. In terms of recommendations, we have seen that there are some domains in the survey, probably won't surprise you, Nicole, or many of your listeners, but some of the things that are, like we talked about, most highly correlated with overall satisfaction, the quality of interactions with the staff, the quality of the care, the activities and enrichments that the communities offer, all of the things that really engage residents, make them feel that personal connection. Those are the areas that we see the communities that are rated best really standing out in.
Mhm. And do all senior living communities, is this a mandatory survey for them, or do they have the option to essentially opt in?
It's not mandatory, again, just like we talked about, with nursing homes that are paid by Medicare and Medicaid. There are national reporting requirements. The best senior living ratings are based on that survey, and participation in the survey is voluntary by the senior living communities. We've learned that many, many, many senior living communities across the country are already engaging in annual resident and family satisfaction surveys. The things that we're asking about, they know that they're important and they're working to improve them every day. And so the participation in the best senior living ratings is really kind of an extension of that commitment to quality, and something that, communities can opt to do.
Right, right. Yeah, the importance of that. How should seniors and families use the ratings as a resource when they're starting their search for senior living?
Yeah, I think, just like we just talked about, for families who are earlier in their search, maybe trying to understand, is senior living right for me? What are the communities in my area that I should be considering? Where can I go to learn more? The U.S. News Senior Living Ratings and the U.S. News Senior Living Search Tool offer families a really easy way to go to usnews.com/senior living and get started to search by zip code, by city, by state, and see what the best communities in those areas are. We also see a lot of families using our tools, our ratings and rankings, a little bit later in their journey, as they are starting to narrow down their list and really, compare one community to another. The U.S. News Senior Living section provides Both the ratings and our community profiles provide a wealth of information for seniors and their family members. There are those high performing accolades that we mentioned, so people can really see, from a data perspective, what does this community stand out for? We have photos, we have a wealth of information about the programming and amenities that the communities offer. So as families seek to, narrow down their options and compare, the U.S. News Senior Living tool continues to be a good resource to use.
What a great place to start and to be able to see how it's in alignment with what your desires are, right, as a family. And you
Mhm.
you answered my question, where can we go to find those ratings? So,
That's great.
yes, and we'll include that also in our episode description. I also would love to get your thoughts on what do you see in the future of senior living, or how do you hope US News plays a part in shaping some of that future and ratings and highlighting the work that's being done?
That's a big question. I think, we look forward to continuing to expand the ways that we're helping families in this space. So, within senior living, we look forward to continuing to collect and analyze this data and bring, more and better insights to families over time. We know that the senior living journey is not linear. It's complicated and it has a lot of branches. We're looking for ways to bring information about senior living into the experience for folks who are looking at long-term care and our nursing home ratings and the short-term rehab ratings. And we're also starting to look at, ways that we can help families really understand the spectrum of options from senior living to care at home.
Thank you. So, as you were sharing about how families are using US News as a resource, tell us more about some surveys you're doing around families and what you've discovered within that.
Yeah, absolutely. US News, we analyze that national survey to do the ratings every year, but we also, continue to do other consumer research to help us make our products better and really understand, what this decision process is like for families and how we can support them. And recently, just towards the end of 2024, we conducted a study, a survey of more than 300 seniors and their family members who had already completed the move into senior living. So they were kind of past that search phase and were living in senior living communities. And we asked them about their experiences with loneliness and isolation and how senior living had impacted that experience. And, as you no doubt know, loneliness and isolation among the senior population is a significant problem. It's been mentioned in reports by the Surgeon General. And I can share too, it's, something that is close to home for me. My grandfather passed away last year after moving into senior living. And he and my grandma had been married for 76 years.
Wow.
And after my grandma passed away, he was still living at home. He was 100 years old. And he just the his day-to-day experience changed so much not having his partner there. And he
Yeah.
really started to feel anxiety, to have trouble sleeping, to ruminate. It was really hard on him and his adult children, my parents, my aunts and uncles. And he moved into senior living last year, and it had just a markedly positive impact. He started eating meals again to join the other members of the community. He made new connections, and the research that we recently did really bears that out. We found that of our survey respondents, nearly 70% experienced loneliness a significant portion of the time before they moved to senior living, and after that, after the move, they reported that sense of loneliness had gone down to about 40% of folks feeling lonely on a regular basis. And what really moved me was that the respondents, they pointed out some of the things that led to that decrease in loneliness. And they reported a notable increase in how frequently they did things like engaging in physical activity, taking part in activity they enjoy, sharing a meal with a friend, finding meaning and purpose in daily life. And so when I reflect on my own personal experience with my grandfather, with the research we've done at US News, and with the trends that we're seeing in the Best Senior Living Survey, I see those communities that are recognized as best really delivering high satisfaction in those areas that allow their residents to experience those better outcomes.
Yeah, to thrive, right? We need people and human connection in those environments that do that well, really set that up for success. So, thank you for sharing that and your personal story. It is such a benefit to have the support systems when we need them. So,
It is. It
yeah.
is indeed.
Thank you for your time and for sharing more about that. We will include the links in our episode description so people can dive in and search and do more information gathering. Thank you for sharing with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed our episode, please subscribe and give us 5 stars. In all honesty, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to our episode.